All right, let's just dive right into this. The difference between sitting on a B grade and securing a clean, untouchable A star in your Cambridge counting exams often comes down to one absolute battleground. And that is exactly how well you understand the advantages and, more importantly, the critical limitations of each method of investment appraisal. In this explainer, we are going to operate like elite curriculum architects. We're going to decode the exact expectations of the Cambridge Assessment International Education Syllabus specifically for 9706. We are looking incredibly closely at the average rate of return, net present value, internal rate of return, and the payback period. But we aren't just going to recap the formulas. No, we are going to look at the real-time tracking grids and uncover exactly where thousands of candidates globally literally hemorrhage marks without even realizing it. And most importantly, I'm going to show you how to engineer your responses to hit the highest possible mark bands by deeply and systematically analyzing these specific financial tools. We're talking about maximizing your mark yield meter from the lowest bands straight up to that A-star level.
Here is our elite playbook for today. First, we'll be deconstructing the target question. Then, we'll get into the collaborative strategy debate. After that, channel transmission and system upgrade, followed by a pause and practice visual workshop. And finally, we will wrap it all up with the ultimate strategy recap.
Section 1. Deconstructing the target question. So, why do candidates fail to interpret complex texts and data? Listen, the principal examiner reports tell a totally fascinating story about this, and it all boils down to your command words. Think of command words as the absolute strict rules of the game. A command word like analyze requires you to break down a scenario into its component parts. You're unpacking it. But when a question asks you to evaluate, it is demanding a completely different cognitive skill. It wants balanced judgment. Imagine you're sitting in the exam hall, the clock is ticking, and a high-tariff, multi-part question asks you to evaluate the net present value method against the payback period. If you just panic and merely list out the mathematical steps to calculate them, you trigger an immediate brutal marking penalty. Your mark yield meter just flatlines. You hit a hard ceiling on the examiner's grid because true evaluation requires weighing the distinct advantages and the fatal limitations of each method against one another to form a definitive, justified recommendation. If you don't judge, you don't score the top marks. Simple as that.
To really understand how to avoid that penalty, you have to look at the distinct assessment objectives, or AOs. These cognitive domains are exactly how your examiner is grading you line by line. AO1 represents your foundational knowledge. This is basically, can you simply define the average rate of return? AO2 is application. Can you actually calculate it using the specific data from the provided case study? But here is where the A star is won or lost. AO3 and AO4. These require analysis and evaluation. Successful candidates demonstrate systematic, evidence-based reasoning across all of these domains simultaneously. You absolutely cannot build a top-tier answer out of just basic facts. You need the structural, architectural integrity of high-level analysis to actually recommend whether a multi-million-dollar investment should go ahead or be scrapped.
Section 2. The collaborative strategy debate.
It is incredibly easy to fall into the trap of overloading your answers with raw factual definitions. I see it all the time. Let's step into a shared study suite for a second and imagine two scholars, Alex and Sam, who are drafting a model response paragraph right now. Now, Alex is a classic overwriter. Alex is frantically typing away, trying to secure foundational marks by stating, the internal rate of return is the discount rate that makes the net present value 0. And Alex says, look, it's a safe bet, it's mathematically true, I'm getting points. But Sam stops him. Sam says, wait, Alex, safe doesn't get you top marks. That's just AO1 knowledge. Sam is fighting to build a flexible, analytical thesis link because Sam knows the real evaluative points come from recognizing the inherent flaws in these methods. Sam tells Alex, a massive limitation of the IRR is its underlying assumption that interim cash flows can be reinvested at the exact same rate. In reality, for the struggling manufacturing business outlined in our case study, reinvesting at 15% is completely unrealistic. And Sam is totally right. You have to push beyond basic textbook definitions. You have to actively build a thesis that highlights these practical, messy, real-world limitations.
And this brings us to a massively crucial insight pulled straight from the chief examiner's desk. Candidates referencing cross-topic connections achieve significantly higher marks. What does that actually mean? It means true analytical depth requires integration with other areas of the syllabus. You cannot just talk about investment appraisal in a vacuum. Think about it. How does a negative net present value project impact a company's liquidity ratios? If you choose a project with a heavily delayed payback period, how does that choke their working capital management in year 2? When you take the time to weave these cross-topic connections into your evaluative thesis, you completely elevate your answer. You move from a simple calculation summary to a holistic, top-tier financial analysis that forces the examiner to push you into the highest band.
Section 3. Channel Transmission and System Upgrade.
All right, strategy check. Before we unlock this top-band paragraph structure to help you completely crush your upcoming exam sessions, you need to make sure your revision feed is perfectly optimized. Take a second right now to subscribe to Ace the Exams at the handle Ace the Exams and enable all notifications so you never miss our weekly Cambridge exam breakdowns, whether you are sitting for IGCSE, O-Levels, AS, or A-Levels. Okay, let's get back into it. To execute top-tier evaluation, we have to look closely at the specific frameworks of each appraisal method using a 5-step system. 1. Deconstruct the question. 2. Extract the data. 3. Select your framework. 4. Execute the notation. And 5. Verify and present. Take net present value and average rate of return. NPV is widely considered the gold standard because it explicitly considers the time value of money. It mathematically recognizes that $1 today is worth way more than $1 tomorrow. ARR, on the other hand, is strictly an accounting metric. It is not a true cash flow metric. It completely ignores the timing of cash flows, which is a massive structural limitation you absolutely need to exploit in your written answers.
But here's the thing. Right in the middle of drafting their response, Alex and Sam hit a massive structural roadblock. Their evidence just isn't linking back to their main thesis. It's disjointed. This is where we have to deploy a universal structural matrix. We call it the Peel framework. Point, evidence, explanation, link. Let's rewrite their text out loud, line by line, applying strict presentation conventions. First, the point with correct terminology. While ARR provides a simple percentage return, it is fundamentally flawed during periods of high inflation. Next, the evidence using appropriate formats. For the 5-year project in the stimulus, the ARR calculations treat the heavily inflated cash earned in year 5 equally with year 1 cash. Then, the explanation with clear annotation. Consequently, relying solely on ARR significantly overstates the true profitability, potentially leading directors to accept a project that destroys shareholder wealth in real terms. Finally, the link back to the question. Therefore, NPV is a far superior format for this specific inflationary environment as it discounts future cash flows to their present real-world value. Boom! Flawless, top-tier response block.
Section 4. Pause and Practice Visual Workshop.
Now I want to challenge you directly. Let's test your examiner compliance by scanning the top 3 warnings extracted straight from the principal examiner reports. I want you to imagine a 60-second countdown timer running right now. Warning 1. Answers are too vague, specific details are needed. Warning 2. Students forget to check format and presentation. And warning 3. Answers are not specific to the context given. Take a second, be honest with yourself. Think about your own practice essays under extreme pressure. Which of these traps are you most likely to fall into when writing about investment appraisals? Time is up. Let's look at the most dangerous one.
And this brilliantly illustrates the biggest trap of all. The absolute classic mistake that tanks your grade is providing generic answers. Let's say you're looking at a flawed, medium-tier sample student paragraph. The student writes, "A limitation of the payback period is that it ignores all cash flows after the payback date." Now listen, that is an absolutely accurate, mathematically true statement, but here is the examiner trap. If your specific case study is about a mining company whose massive, highly lucrative extraction happens in year 10, and you fail to mention the mining context or that year 10 payout at all in your paragraph, your perfectly accurate statement just became completely generic. You just dropped the AO2 application mark entirely. Context is the undisputed king of Cambridge exams. Always, always link the limitation of the appraisal method to the specific, unique scenario sitting in front of you. So, how do we fix this? To elevate your answer from merely descriptive to fiercely evaluative, you must master comparative analysis. Here is your checklist. First, identify both similarities and differences between the appraisal methods. Second, you have to use comparative connectives. I'm talking about signposting words like whereas, conversely, or in contrast. These words act as a giant neon sign to the examiner saying, "Hey, I am evaluating right now." Third, support each comparison with hard numerical evidence extracted directly from the stimulus. Don't just say, "It's more expensive." Say it costs $50,000 more. Finally, draw conclusions about relative importance. Don't just generically state that NPV is better. You need to explain exactly why it is more vital for this specific company given their unique cash flow constraints at this specific time. This is how you unlock those highest cognitive domains.
Section 5. The Ultimate Strategy Recap. So Alex and Sam have reviewed their final high-scoring response text.
and they've realized that applying these frameworks is the ultimate game changer. Let's distill this entire explainer into 3 universal Cambridge operational rules. This is your final mental audit. Number 1, the 3-step question scan. Before you write a single word, you decode the command word, you identify the core topic, and you pinpoint the required AOs. Number 2, the marks per minute formula. Time allocation is critical. If a question is worth 12 marks, you multiply that by your time metric, say 1.5 minutes, and you do not exceed that limit. You manage your time under extreme pressure. Number 3, the post-writing compliance audit. This is your review checklist. Did you link to the scenario? Did you evaluate instead of just describe? Remember, while payback period is incredibly safe and easy for management to understand, it is fundamentally flawed. ARR might look appealing, but it ignores the timing of your returns. NPV remains the gold standard because it strictly factors in the time value of money, giving you the most accurate picture of shareholder wealth creation.
But before you go, I want you to ask yourself a highly provocative question. If net present value is mathematically the superior appraisal method in almost every single conceivable way, why do so many real-world CEOs still obsess over the simple payback period? Does human psychology and the desperate need for immediate financial reassurance matter more to a board of directors than the pure math? Think about it. It's a massive analytical point you can use. Right now, I want you to subscribe to Ace the Exams, click that notification bell for our weekly grade masterclasses, and drop a comment below telling us exactly which Cambridge subject and level, IGCSE, O, AS, or A level, you are preparing to conquer next. Apply these methods to your past papers, and we'll see you in the next explainer.